Thank you for joining me back here on the show to go over a last segment here on today's episode, talking about one of the teams that I'm silently rooting for, that a team that I'm quietly excited for also in 2024, and just really overall this entire division, which the Tennessee Titans find themselves in now with how the Texans have improved, how the Titans have improved, the Jacksonville Jaguars still pretty decent and incorporating some new pieces around their squad, and even the Indianapolis Colts as well, adding some more important pieces to their offense, getting back Anthony Richardson. I wanted to focus on this Titans team though, and to me, with those new incorporations that I mentioned, they have a new head coach, Brian Callahan. They have no more Derrick Henry, so that's obviously a big change to their roster, but also the philosophy that they're going to try to incorporate. Also, bringing in L'Jarius Sneed, I thought was huge. Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, Chidobe Awuzie, Jamal Adams, and Quandre Diggs, just to name a couple. They also added some pieces to their offensive line. So this team really is going to look different. They have a lot more household names, I think, that really are just going to draw more people in and want to see what this Titans team could look like in 2024. I'm excited for it because of that change of philosophy that I mentioned with not having Derrick Henry and bringing in Brian Callahan, used to having an offense that's more spread out, having all these options in the receiving game in his time with Cincinnati with Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. He does bring over Tyler Boyd, and now he has Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, so I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see how different the Titans are, and it's a big stop here. It's a big thing that is into consideration. The missing piece that is going to connect everything, the hub that makes everything flow, is going to be ultimately the quarterback. Obviously, the most important position in the NFL, and the responsibility of carrying these expectations, carrying the way that this looks, the execution is going to fall on Will Levis. Entering only his second year in the NFL, will have more pressure on himself just overall based on the position that he plays. But I think this excitement that now is built in to the Tennessee Titans right away with all the changes that they've brought, not just for me, I'm not the only one saying it, but according to CBS, some Tennessee Titans fans have claimed that this season has been the most exciting one in the franchise's history, just again based on everybody that they brought in. A lot of people are buying into the Tennessee Titans. Again, not just the fans, not just me coming on here and boasting about it. I think if you're not paying attention to the Titans, they will give you a reason to, but it has to be because of Will Levis. He has to be the one that connects everything, that really runs the show like most well-executed, well-run teams do. And is he ready for that? Are the expectations, there to be met for Will Levis just entering his second year in a whole new offense, completely different from what Coach Vrabel had this Titans team do last year? Now it's a bit more modern, a bit more open, and potentially could fit Will Levis's skill set a little bit better, so that's a positive, but it doesn't change the fact that he has to learn a whole new playbook and, just learn everything so early on in his NFL career. But like I mentioned before, regarding CBS Sports, Will Levis talked to CBS recently about this new Titans team and just what he expects the changes to be. What changes has he seen already from his first year to this year? And he said, our versatility, I think that our identity as a team is going to be pretty different than what teams have been used to seeing when the Titans play. And also he praised their additions on defense and just how much better they've improved, in his opinion, with their new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, coming over and challenging this offense each and every day in training camp. So that's also exciting, I think, having those battles, iron sharpening iron, like everybody says. It shows that this Titans team, I think, has a lot more potential and a lot higher of a ceiling than in recent years, because in reality, last year and really years before that, nobody was talking about the Titans, honestly, a lot heading into any year. It was probably going to be more of the same. You knew Derrick Henry was going to get the ball 30 times a game. It was going to be low scoring. Their defense was going to try and keep them in it. If they make a couple of good throws here or there, they were going to have a good chance of winning. And with the NFL shifting so much, trying to be more modern and high scoring and everything like that, yeah, it was something different, but it fit what they wanted to do. And going along that style, going with that method, it didn't usually pan out as they would have wanted it to. Of course, now I believe that they're a lot more talented and based on the players that they have, but just off of last year, the expectations weren't really there for the Titans, whereas now I feel like it's 180 degrees different heading into this year. And you look at just the circumstances and the idea with the Titans, just based on what I said, their over-under record this year was set at 6.5. And that, I think, says a lot because it goes into those expectations that I think were lacking for the Tennessee Titans. And it might show that a lot of people are still not buying in, but I truly believe that they're going to be pretty special and pretty competitive this year. So if you're a betting person and you want to take that, I would definitely take the over on that. Only 3 teams have longer Super Bowl odds than the Titans, and I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but it seems like an easy bet to win at 6.5 over-under mark for this Titans team that is just astronomically better. But again, I sound like I'm getting ahead of myself, but I do want to emphasize that the biggest thing is going to be Will Levis. And at this point, talking about the pressure, not just from the fans, saying this is the most exciting offseason in the entire franchise's history, Will Levis has obviously heard it, but in reality, he only has one goal in mind. And he said, based on that, he said, I'm not going to look at stats. I'm not going to look at record. I just think I want to turn the tape on and see myself doing the right, boring things on a consistent basis. I think that's how quarterbacks play in this league for the longest time, is they never get bored with doing the boring things. And pretty interesting way of putting it, but how I interpret it is, just doing the fundamentals right, going on each and every week, turning on the tape and knowing that you're improving, doing all of the little things right, I think is what Will Levis wants to do and focus upon this year because, again, he's still super young. I am putting these expectations on him already as the most important piece, obviously, but I think that just comes with the territory. You are playing quarterback, and yeah, he's super young, but I think this team is inching closer and closer to a win now mode, and we're obviously going to see some weaknesses, some deficiencies this year. It's going to come with, building this new team. But for right now, based on what they have on paper, looking at it and projecting like everybody does in sports, I think they are in a good spot to do it because you look at Will Levis's performance in 2023. He was 5th in yards among rookies with just over 1,800 yards. He was 6th among rookies in touchdowns with 8. He threw 4 interceptions, but all of that was only done in 9 games. So while you had the CJ Strouds go out there and perform very well, CJ obviously played an entire season. And I'm not saying or implying that Will Levis, if he played the entire year, would have been competing with CJ. Different situations, different teams, different talent on each team. So I'm not saying that, but Will Levis, if you give him however many games it was, 8 more games, I think those numbers could have looked a lot more impressive, and he could have been up there at least closer to CJ Stroud, I truly believe, in terms of the numbers, and I think people would have a different opinion on Will Levis at that point in time if he put up, I don't know, like 2,800 yards, 12 touchdowns or something like that over the next 8 games. It would have looked a little bit more comparable to CJ, and I think people would have looked at Will Levis a little bit more prepared than they do right now, of course, because he wasn't the starter right off the bat. But at 6-11 last year, I think they have enough to at least get to 8 games in a tough division. I'm only adding 2 more wins to them to be 8-9, but this is a tough division, and if they could get to 8 games, I think that's the minimum. That's their floor, in my opinion, with how talented they are, and it's going to be very entertaining to watch. I'm very much looking forward to that, but all the other teams, had a winning record. Only the AFC North had all teams above 500, which to me is the best division in the NFL. So this AFC South is sneakily inching closer to that territory of competing with the AFC North for one of the best divisions in the entire NFL. So that goes along, again, with the team that the Titans have built now, and they were the only team to finish under 500, so I don't expect any of the other teams to play dramatically worse. So the Titans, with getting this much better, I believe that they're going to be right in the thick of things with everybody else, and they could be in a very close race heading towards the end of the year and vying for playoff spots with all of these teams potentially. It's not going to be easy by any stretch, but the makeup, the ideology of this team, I think suits them a lot better, fits Will Levis a lot better, which is the most important thing. And talking about stats and expectations for Will Levis just into next year to close this segment out, I think overall for Will Levis, he could push to at least another 1,000 yards added to the 1,800 that he had. Maybe in a perfect world, he gets over 3,000 yards with maybe 14 to 17 touchdowns as well, at least, if he takes that next necessary step in his development. I don't think that's too crazy to say. You know, he was nearly at 2,000 yards in just 2 games. To add another 1,000 over the course of another 8 games, I don't think it's too outlandish to say at this point, because this team has certainly gotten better. They've gotten him more weapons, and from what I've seen and from what I've read in the reports from training camp, it looks like Brian Callahan and this team is pretty satisfied with Will Levis from what they've seen so far. It's a new offense. It's going to take some time. There are going to be some bumps, but in saying all of that, with how this division is also set up, it's a very young division as well. There's not one team just dominating it. It's lined up that way with how the Texans are built, but it's a very young, unpredictable division, and that just makes it more exciting and gives the Titans, I think, more of an opportunity to really compete this year with how they've built this team. But the expectations are there for Will Levis, the expectations to put up those numbers that I mentioned and get this team. They were last year, so if they can finish second in this division and be in competition for the playoffs, I think that's a successful season for Will Levis. I'm expecting him to do that. Let me know if you guys think I'm just crazy for having this level of expectation for Will Levis in just his second year, but I'm really buying into this Titans team. I like seeing them. I like how they built their team, just going all in for these changes. But let me know what you guys think of Will Levis and this Titans team just in general in this year. But with that being said, we're going to wrap up the show with that last segment. I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's show. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to check out more of this show, check out both YouTube channels, the Podcast Network channel and the GSMC Sports Network channel, to find a lot more content around the NFL in regards to this show. And lastly, tune in every weekday, as always, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more discussions and all the latest storylines across the NFL with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you again for joining me, and I expect to see you guys back here with me again tomorrow. See you guys later.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to